All hell broke loose on September 9th when Israel all of a sudden conducted air strikes in Doha targeting Hamas leaders. The strike killed 5 Hamas members and a Qatari security officer. However, top leadership of Hamas present in Doha at that moment mostly survived. On request of Qatar, UN Security Council meeting called on 11th September widely condemned the Israeli attack.
We are just learning about the Israeli attacks in Qatar, a country that has been playing a very positive role to achieve a ceasefire and release of all hostages. I condemn this flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar. All parties must work towards achieving a permanent ceasefire, not destroying it.
A day later, on 12th September, Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Thani also met US President Donald Trump in New York to discuss Israeli aggression. United States military hosts Udeid Air Base located near Doha. Now, days later, Qatar had called an Arab-Islamic Extraordinary Summit in Qatar on 14th and 15th September to garner wider support against Israel, what it called a breach of sovereignty, reckless behavior, and state terrorism. What does it mean to the region and to the world at large? So I'm going to discuss all this in this brief video presentation. Don't skip, stay tuned till end of the video. So without further ado, let's get started. Before that summit, foreign ministers from Arab and Islamic countries are meeting to prepare a draft resolution to respond to the attack. The Arab League with 22 members and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation with 57 members often issue strong statements against Israeli actions, but unity on the action is rare. So what does Israeli strikes on Doha mean? The UN Charter Article 2, Clause 4 prohibits one country from using force against another except in self-defense or with UN Security Council authorization. Israeli actions violated Geneva Conventions, which is on law of war and protecting civilians, and it also violates Vienna Convention that protects embassies, diplomats, and sovereignty and also prohibits such actions. A country's airspace and waters are its property. Violating them without consent is illegal. So if a state bombs another state's territory without permission or UN mandate, it usually violates international law unless it claims self-defense. So neither the Qatar authorized the strikes nor the United Nations. So Qatar says Israel not only violated Qatar's sovereignty but also all international rules and norms. And the violation happened at a time when Qatar was mediating between Israel and Hamas for the release of Israeli hostages in captivity of Hamas in lieu of Palestinian prisoners. So the Arab-Islamic Extraordinary Summit is a way for a group of Arab and Islamic nations to show solidarity with Qatar and to send a message to Israel and other international actors. If we look at the events with Israel's perspective, then it is Israel's strategy to mount pressure on Qatar to expel or prosecute Hamas members. PM Netanyahu has reportedly demanded this. Meanwhile, Qatar for long played a mediation role between Hamas, Israel, and other stakeholders. This strike could undermine ceasefire, hostage release efforts. The Gulf countries are US allies. Israel's strike raises questions on intelligence, security guarantees, and how much influence the US still has in restraining or shaping actions in the region. The Israeli strikes on Doha may have a wider regional implications. It may disturb the Middle East military balance. With Israel airstrikes, countries like Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia may accelerate purchase of advanced anti-missile systems like US Patriots. Third, if they wish to be in the US influence of sphere of influence, or even Chinese or Russian alternatives. If they believe US is siding with Israel and it is indispensable for them to move away from US orbit, however, it is very difficult. Gulf states now see themselves as vulnerable to precision strikes, leading to militarization. Gulf already spends the world's highest per capita in purchase of arms. Now this further fueled. The Israeli strikes on Doha may put US security guarantees for Gulf under questions. If Qatar, home to Al Udeid Air Base, was struck while hosting US forces, Arab states may doubt American deterrence credibility. In such a scenario, the possibility of a Gulf Cooperation Council wide or maybe broader Arab-Islamic air defense network gaining momentum. Tehran may present itself as Qatar's natural defender, complicating the Gulf unity. With Israeli strikes on Qatar, it is regional relations dynamics that may also change. Countries like UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco face public anger and may freeze deeper cooperation with Israel. Egypt and Jordan, who are existing peace partners, will be pressured to downgrade ties or at least issue stronger condemnation. The strikes also risk of wider escalation with Hezbollah in Lebanon or militias in Iraq or Syria could exploit the moment to open new frontiers. Besides, the internal security in Arab states with the strikes may fuel protest, Islamic mobilization, and delimitarization of moderate Arab regimes seen as soft on Israel. Leaders in Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Egypt may likely to face hard choices balancing Western ties with street anger. These strikes also raises maritime and energy security issues with risk to shipping and other communication lanes. Tensions in Gulf waters at Strait of Hormuz or at Bab al-Mandeb could increase, threatening global oil gas flow. Gulf states fear Israel or Iran proxies in retaliation could hit critical oil gas facilities. This may result in insurance and shipping costs rise. Militant propaganda likely to boost as groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and even ISIS could exploit the incident as proof of Western Israeli aggression, as I told you earlier. These strikes may result in foreign fighter mobilization with possibilities of renewed jihadi recruitment across Muslim majority states like Pakistan, who sends jihadis all across the world. Though some Arab states normalized ties with Israel, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco under the Abraham Accords, others still remains hostile like Iran and Syria. While Gulf states are cautious, balancing US alliance, energy trade, and security. Now, what this Arab-Islamic Extraordinary Summit represents? On diplomatic front, strong joint resolution condemning Israel, that's number one. Calls for UN Security Council emergency session, that's another one had happened. Push for international investigation into the strike. Demands for Western allies, especially US, to restrain Israel. And on economic front, possible calls for trade or energy leverage, oil, gas pressure. But full-scale embargo like 1973 oil shock is unlikely. And it is too divisive and too risky for the Gulf countries as well. On political front, there could be efforts to revive Palestinian issues on world stage. Pressure on Qatar to host or protect Hamas leaders more carefully. Attempts to block further normalization of Israel with Arab states. On security front, calls for joint Arab defense cooperation. Some countries may step up funding support for Palestinian groups indirectly, but unity may be missing despite a big push by Qatar. Diverging priorities, one factor, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco don't want to break Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia is very cautious, wants to appear as a leader of the Islamic world, but also depends on US security guarantees. Iran versus Sunni bloc, if we talk about tensions over leadership of Islamic cause, because Iran presents itself as a leader of the Islamic world, however it is more Shia nation, whereas Saudi Arabia is a Sunni nation. So they exert their own supremacy. Moreover, there is a dependency on US West. Most Gulf states host US bases. They don't want full confrontation with the United States or Israel even. So what is likely outcome of the summit? A strongly worded condemnation and a resolution reaffirming support for Palestine and sovereignty of Arab states. Calls for action may be human rights investigations, symbolic unity, but no major military economic actions against Israel. Qatar gains sympathy and prestige as host, but also pressure to distance itself from Hamas. Now, in between all these developments, Pakistan would try to leverage its nuclear point. It wants to be the leader of the Islamic countries and Arab nations, saying that Pakistan is the only country, a nuclear state. So, it would like to assure the Islamic and Arab countries that it has the nuclear button and it can press against Israel. So what would happen in that case? Israel may strike even Pakistan if it feels that there could be existential harms to Israel because of the Pakistan's nuclear bomb. So it can obliterate the Pakistan's nuclear facilities. That is a possibility. However, now how Mr. Trump would take this proposition, because these days he's siding more with General Asim Munir, Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan Army. So Qatar has bore the brunt of both Iran and Israel. You may recall that in June 2025, this year itself, few months back, the US struck Iranian nuclear related sites. In response, Iran launched missiles at Udeid Air Base in Qatar and other sites. Qatar's air defenses with warning were involved, and there were no casualties reported. Qatar, that plays a mediating role with Israel, saw Israel attacking its own territory and killing its national, with Hamas leaders. The timing of the Israeli strikes hitting Hamas leaders allegedly reviewing a US-backed ceasefire proposal has raised suspicion that Israel or actors in concert or with tacit approval might be trying to disrupt those diplomatic efforts by Qatar. So, what do you see about this Arab-Islamic Extraordinary Summit in the wake of Israeli strike on Doha? Do write in the comment box. Thanks for watching National Defense. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.